Hello, hello. Welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast, wonderful technologists. Hope you guys are having an amazing week. It has been challenging because, my kids are back in school, back into the swing of things, and just getting life just back to some kind of normalcy for them, myself, the whole 9 yards. So, little bit of housekeeping. So, if you caught the last podcast episode where we talked about the buzz as far as our profession being reclassified through the OMB, the Office of Business Management, um, or should I say the Office of Management and Budget? Excuse me. Got that a little wrong. So there were 42,000 comments submitted to them from all of us just all over the world. So this is huge. It's amazing. So now we have to find out if they will, and I hope they will, reclassify us as professionals and not technical. So if you've caught any of my reels on Instagram, I did a really good one. It got a lot of views. It got a lot of shares about our profession as far as it not being technical. So make sure you check that out if you follow me on Instagram, because I do post a lot of educational stuff when it comes to my reels. So, little housekeeping. I got something special going on that I am going to drop next month. So, I'm going to just go ahead and kind of give you little bits and pieces. So, make sure you follow me on social media on Instagram. And make sure you subscribe to the podcast because I'll be dropping little tidbits on something big that I am working on. If you did not catch the live 3-day event that I did on how to be the go-to CT tech, there's a link in the show notes where you can access. It's a 3-part event, so kind of like a masterclass. And make sure you join the private Facebook group so you can have access to it. If you're on my email list, you should have gotten access to it. So make sure you click the link in the show notes, get access. Come fucking be the go-to CT tech. Like, don't be shy. Okay. Another thing, the doors to my 6-month coaching program are now open. So if you're interested in having me coach you for the next 6 months on how to be the go-to superstar tech, where you can walk into any hospital ready to scan, take that traveling contract, move up to management, whatever your heart desires. Make sure you check out the show notes. There's a link to an application. Make sure you apply so I can deem you a good fit for the program. All good stuff. So you get 6 months of coaching with me personally. There are some self-paid courses that you can take on your own. We will do some Slack coaching where you can come into Slack, get coached every day. And I will be hosting a quarterly workshop where I get to workshop some of the things that we need to know as CT techs to make our jobs better, make sure that you get the education that you need, and just be the fucking go-to. Want you all to be superstars, okay? So make sure you check out the show notes for all that good stuff. So let's get into today's episode. So in today's episode, it's going to be a little controversial. And I know I've talked about this on my podcast, probably in many episodes back, but I feel that it's important to talk about. So it's probably going to shock you a little bit. But when it comes to learning the CT basics, especially if you're starting out, if you're 2-3 years in and you didn't get a lot of training, the training was inadequate, you don't need a college-based CT program to learn the basics. So just bear with me on this episode because I've got a lot of stuff that will make you kind of just, maybe think a little bit and see if really these college-based, university-based programs are really needed. Now, of course, if you want to get a bachelor's degree, in some positions you do need a bachelor's degree. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you want to learn, you're starting out in CT, you've got 2-3 years experience, you may not be unsure of what you're really doing, you want to be successful, you want to be better, and your training was fucking inadequate and it was shitty. So I'm going to give you my tidbits on what I think should happen and how you need to work with me, because I can get you to where you need to be. Now, The first thing that I'm going to talk about is flexibility versus traditional learning. So these are two methods, okay? Now, I know there's lots of programs out there that exist that are self-paced. They make you sign up for a clinical rotation wherever you want to be, and you have to do a lot of that on your own. Now, this may work for some, it doesn't work for everybody because a lot of times, lots of people, their learning curve is a lot slower than others. Now, when I talk about, traditional learning versus flexibility, I'm talking about online courses, live workshops, self-paced lessons, things like that, college programs that, they have a certain schedule on when you need to show up for the didactic courses and when you're supposed to do clinicals. Now, there's a difference because a lot of you that are listening, like myself, are parents, we have children, we have full-time jobs. So the traditional learning method doesn't always fit into our lifestyle, doesn't fit into our schedule. So a lot of these programs have been created where there's online courses, there's maybe a live workshop, self-paced lessons, and a lot of things that you have to do on your own. I think the missing piece to these programs is the mentorship, the coaching, because in order to be a good technologist, you need that mentorship, somebody that believes in you, that shows you, okay, this was a mistake. Let's see how we can correct it for the next patient, what we're not supposed to do, how we can execute optimal exams, So a lot of times we're not able as parents, or if you're just single and you have two jobs, if, whatever your lifestyle is, you cannot attend a college program because it's not flexible with picking up your kids from school. If you have a second job, if we work overnight, things like that. So that's why sometimes when you have these courses online that are self-paced and adding the mentorship and the coaching where you get to come on with me and show you, okay, you can tell me what the problem is. I can sit there and coach you and help you through that. So it has to be something that fits your personal life, that you can go ahead and get the education that you need. Where a traditional program, they don't have a lot of flexibility. They really don't, if you really think about it. You have to go there at a certain time. You have to go there at, whatever times they set for classes. And that's how it is. Right? So sometimes that's not a viable option for some people, especially if you have kids and you have two jobs and you're a single mom or a single dad. So sometimes that doesn't always work for everybody. Now, the second thing is the hands-on experience. Now, we all know in CT and in radiology as a whole, the hands-on experience is what really is needed. Because how are you going to learn if you don't have that hands-on? How are you going to learn how to interact with that patient, make sure you position that patient right, instead of simulating it in a lab? Now, there's a difference. I'm not knocking anything, but there is a difference, okay? So I think what's really important is the on-the-job training. I know that the clinical rotation is a part of some of these programs, but there needs to be more mentorship and there needs to be more coaching when it comes to that. And I think that's the biggest piece that is missing because the students are thrown out there and said, okay, you got to do this on your own. And then they instill the trust of whatever technologist is training them or manager or supervisor. And a lot of times it's inadequate. Like, I'm going to be real with you guys. I've seen great, super users and trainers, and I've seen really shitty ones. Okay. And I think if you're listening, you've seen both sides of the fence. So the on-the-job experience is very valuable to learning CT. When you're on the job training, and I know a lot of places have stopped, they pay you to train. Some places still do that, some don't. But that could be very valuable to you because it can, speed up your experience, your training. It could speed up all those things for you, where it'll take you a year to get to that point. If, you go through the didactics, you go through this, you go through that, it could take you a lot longer. Now, I know that a lot of places do not pay you to train. So a lot of times you have to come in on your own. It's the same principle if you take a college program and you have to do clinicals, you don't get paid for that. But I think what it is if you work at the same facility, let's say, for example, and you get off of a shift, depending on what your work schedule is, school, kids, whatever, to sit there and really learn. Like I had a notebook. Like at the time I learned CT, this was like almost 22 years ago. I went ahead and I had a notebook and I would write things down. I would do this, I would do that. So that is very valuable, especially when you're learning and you've never looked at a cross-sectional anatomy image. You've never, positioned a patient for CT. You never ran a CT machine. Those are things that are really, really crucial. So the hands-on experience is so vital, and I cannot stress it enough. Now, another thing that it's kind of where you really don't need a program. I mean, the cost effective alternatives. Okay. Now, traditional programs at colleges or universities can range from 3,000, and some programs, because they incorporate a bachelorette degree, can cost you 20 grand. Okay. For the different types of programs out there in different states. Okay. And that could be a very large, unrealistic cost for some people, especially if you have children and you're a single parent, or you have two jobs, or even just a young person who, is going to college and learning how to do all these things. So there has to be more cost-effective alternatives. So you see some programs out there that are self-paced. Yes, they are in that $4,000 or $5,000 range, but they do have payment plans. However, what is missing, like I keep saying, and I know I'm beating it like a dead horse, the coaching and mentorship part is what's needed. That is the piece that is missing, because a lot of the techs need mentorship. They need coaching because they're just thrown out there and told to figure it out. 21, 22 years ago, that's exactly how I was. Okay, you want to learn CT? Okay, here you go. Well, here you go. Learn. And that is a very daunting task, especially if you've never operated a machine and you've never seen a cross-sectional anatomy image. So, and at that time, there weren't a lot of books and a lot of study material, not even a course or anything out there. So that cost can be very, very unrealistic for people. That's why I've designed an entire program. Not only do you get the self-paced courses, you also get, live workshops with me. I can get you test ready in 90 days because I've done it. Okay. And that's where the cost for 6 months with me, yeah, it's equivalent to some of these courses out here that takes you 14 months to get through. Okay. But in 6 months, you'll be ready to go. Now, the other piece is the practical skills and the focus. So, what I've done my own research, okay, on a lot of these college programs, because I even researched them myself when there was programs that were coming out when I was getting ready to take the CT registry. Some people had said, "Oh, you should take a college course because then you'll get there faster." I didn't have to do all that. Okay. What I did is I learned on the job. I paired up with a few good techs and I got my knowledge together and knew exactly what I needed to study, what I needed to focus on, and just did the damn thing. Okay. What I see a lot of these college courses, because a lot of them will display their curriculum, it's very technical and very heavy on physics. I'm not saying that it's not important. Absolutely, it's very important because you have to know that for the test. Okay. However, the piece that we are failing to meet is there has to be a better approach when we're doing hands-on experience, making sure they know exactly how to set up a room, ISO send other patient, select the correct protocol, make sure they set those boxes or those lines correctly, and make sure that we're not cutting off any anatomy. Okay. It's not about pushing buttons, guys. Okay. Buttons are easy. CT is not about pushing buttons because you actually have to think outside the box, especially when you have a patient that's contracted, they're not willing to cooperate, they're unconscious, a lot of factors. Okay. we need to have more practical skills. So a hands-on is a better approach. That's why I stress that we should bring back some of these hospital-based programs that give you that hands-on experience. Now, I'm not saying educational courses are not important. They're very important because you still need to get education all the time to make sure you stay abreast to the latest and greatest. I think that we would pump out more efficient, successful techs with making sure that we have a hands-on, on-the-job approach instead of a classroom. Now, I'm not saying that they're all like this because they're not. Yes, the clinical piece is added to all these programs, but do they have a mentor? Do they have a coach that is there to guide them to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do, making sure they understand what they're doing, making sure they understand the job? That's the piece that I think is missing. Okay. Now, I'm also going to tell you some success stories. Okay. One of the best times in my career, I worked at the Air Force Base back in Las Vegas, Nevada, where I'm from. Okay. I had never experienced the military side of how radiology works then and how CT works. Okay. So they have a criteria when the airmen, because they do it by ranking, they have to cross train in CT because in their department they have to make sure that they're X-ray / CT trained because they have to cover both modalities. So what they do is we would train a new person for 8 weeks, get them up to speed, sign them off on all the competencies, and then they would put them on a shift. Okay. So for about a year and a half, it's because I worked at the VA at the time, and my temporary placement, because they were building a new hospital in Las Vegas, all state of the art. So I actually was one of the first ones that worked there at that new state of the art hospital when it opened. So I'm pretty sure you still hear my voice on one of those CT machines in Spanish. So if any of you techs work there in Las Vegas, yes, that is me. So I got hands-on experience because a lot of them had to be not only X-ray registered, they had to be CT registered. So what I went ahead and did is they asked me, because I was CT registered, if I would precept and sign them off on their competencies. Absolutely. So I taught them everything that I need to know as far as patient positioning, how to start IVs, how to execute exams, when, where they need to center for any type of exam, what they're tracking on a PE study, as far as a lot of them didn't do cardiacs. It was only specific people like myself and a couple of other people. So we got them up to speed. And I can tell you, once we got them all squared away with their competencies, and of course, they were studying to take the CT registry. Every single tech that came across in the year and a half that I was there, they all passed the registry on the very first time. I told them exactly what to study. I told them exactly what material to get. I told them exactly what they, how they needed to look at an image. I taught them how to do all of that. And I can tell you, every single one of them, they all passed the registry, every single one of them. And most of them have gone on and gotten multiple registries. Some of them are running departments. Another one is actually, I think he's a physician's assistant. So they have gone on to do bigger and better things, all because I helped them get there. So this is what I'm talking about, guys. You don't need a college program to succeed. You know what you need? You need the right guidance, the right tools, the right mindset, the right coaching and mentorship. And that's what my coaching program does. For 6 months, this is what we do. And I will get you there on whatever your goal is, whether it's to be in management, to travel, to take a leadership position as far as supervisor, if you want to go into education like I have. Those are all readily available for you. Okay. So that's all I got for this episode. So hopefully these are some good pointers. Okay. Make sure you guys check out the show notes for all the things that I talked about today as far as applying for the program. So get your butt in there and apply. My 3-part event that I taught live last month. And if you have any questions, My email will be in the show notes, so contact at thecteducator.com. Make sure you follow along on Instagram at the CT Educator as I post some good stuff and some educational stuff. Okay. So thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I will chat with you guys next week.